The United Nations Children's Fund calls for an end to attacks on civilians and humanitarian workers in Palestine. The UN agency urged the Israeli regime to conduct an investigation into the circumstances of the attack that killed a humanitarian staff member in northern Gaza. Previously, the director of the UN Children's Fund was injured when a drone attacked a UN agency vehicle on its way to Jabalia. The institution stressed that all residents of northern Gaza are at risk of death due to disease, hunger, and constant shelling. In Palestine, at least 6 people were injured, including 4 children, after the Israeli army attacked a polio vaccination center in the Gaza Strip. Medical sources report that the injured children arrived at the Gaza Baptist Hospital after an Israeli drone dropped a bomb on a group of children inside the walls of the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood clinic. The third phase of the polio vaccination campaign for children under 10 years of age was launched this Saturday in Gaza, with the exception of the north of the territory, which for 21 days has been the scene of a genocidal offensive, with Israel blocking all access to water, food, and health aid. According to UN agencies, 15,000 children remain in the north, where it is not possible to assist them due to lack of security. And Israeli forces committed in the last 24 hours 4 new massacres against Palestinian families in the Gaza Strip. At least 27 people lost their lives and 81 others were injured during the Israeli regime's latest aggressions against the Palestinian people. Health authorities report that Tel Aviv continues to block the passage of rescue teams and ambulances seeking to reach the victims and bodies trapped on the rubble. Since October 2023, some 43,341 Palestinians have been killed, while the number of wounded is over 102,000. Meanwhile, Israeli military kidnapped 16 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, including a child. Commission of Detainees and Ex-Detainees of the Palestinian Authority and the Prisoners Society denounced that the abductions occurred in the governorates of Ramallah, Nablus, Tuba, Salfit, and Hebron. A total of 11,500 Palestinians were abducted by the Israeli authorities since the beginning of the aggression against Palestine on October 7, 2023. And the United States is blocking the delivery of humanitarian aid from Iraq to Lebanon. It has threatened to sanction the Lebanese airline Middle East Airlines if it were to transport any wounded people. The U.S. government requested that any humanitarian aid for displaced people and refugees by the Israeli war be delivered through Jordan for prior inspection. Since the escalation of the Israeli war to Lebanon in September, Iraq became its main supplier of humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, Washington insists on continuing to interfere in Beirut's policies. And in the United Kingdom, pro-Palestinian demonstrators rallied at the Prime Minister's residence and the United States Embassy in London to demand an end to the supply of weapons to the Israeli regime. British activists took to the streets of London with Palestinian and Lebanese flags, as well as banners calling for the liberation of Palestine and an end to the genocide in Gaza. Some of those present came to the vicinity of the British Prime Minister's office to lay down on the ground to symbolize the dead bodies of thousands of Palestinians, including women and children. Pro-Israeli counter-protest group also took to the streets of London, holding British and Israeli flags.
Obviously I feel very strongly about what's happening in the Middle East and Palestine in particular, and coming out on the march seems to be the only thing I can do. I want to make the government in this country aware of how strongly people feel.
I'm really against the genocide and injustice that's going on in Palestine, that's been ongoing for a very long time now, and I'm just very upset with Western governments in general for the way that they've been sort of conducting themselves and the narrative that's been going on at the moment. Yeah.
In the United States, pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched in Boston to call on people not to vote for sponsors of genocide in the upcoming presidential election. As election day approaches, voters have been increasingly critical of the campaigns of the two leading candidates, especially that of Kamala Harris, who, following in the footsteps of Joe Biden, intends to continue armed support for the Israeli regime. Many Palestinian supporters argue that Harris should impose a permanent arms embargo on Israel and call for recognition of a free Palestinian state.
good guys, right? The Democrats are supposed to be human rights and all of that, international law, and just seeing them allowing and paying for and covering for and lying about this genocide is just so outrageous that I actually quit the Democratic Party. I've been a Democratic voter my whole life, but I quit and I'm planning to vote for Jill Stein.
And in Iran, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets on Sunday on a day of struggle against world arrogance to condemn the crimes of the United States and Israel in the Middle East. A crowd marched in Tehran with flags of Palestine and of Hezbollah resistance group in support of the Lebanese resistance and the oppressed people of Gaza in their struggle against the aggressions of the Zionist regime. Demonstrators also carried photos and portraits of Iranian revolutionary leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei and portraits of martyrs of the resistance killed by the Israeli army. November 4, 1979 was declared Students' Day and Day of Struggle against World Arrogance in honor of a group of revolutionary students who seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, dubbed the Nest of Espionage.